She didn't cry when the apple farm was auctioned. Not when the porch collapsed beneath the banker's boots. Not even when the man said, "Nothing left here for you, girl." What broke her was the lost apple tree. It bloomed late that spring, 3 weeks after the buyers tore down the fence. She saw it from the road, its branches wide and pink, standing over scorched earth like a woman waiting for someone who wouldn't return. Junior Whitlock didn't go back. She kept walking. 3 towns later, she stood at the edge of Pine Barrel Ridge with nothing but a wrinkled red dress, a spoon tucked into her bag, and a letter she didn't open. She read the crooked sign instead, nailed to a beam on the porch of a white-planked ranch house. "Need a woman." She didn't knock, just stood there, the prairie wind pulling at her braid. Then the door opened. He filled the frame like a barn door, tall, broad, still in his boots. Dust streaked his shirt. His sleeves were rolled to the elbow, and his face wasn't young, but it was steady. Sawyer-rig. He looked at her the way a man looks at an empty field, calculating the yield, not the beauty. "You here for the sign?" Junior snorted softly. "I was hoping it meant someone was selling pies." He didn't smile, just said, "Stay if you want, but you'll be my wife." No charm, no hesitation, and something in her, tired, hard, scorched dry, didn't flinch. She answered, "I'm not the marrying kind." "You'll still be my wife." It wasn't a threat, not even an order, just a fact, said plainly, like he was naming the weather. She stepped over the threshold with cracked boots and a colder heart than she wanted to admit. The house smelled like pine soap and leather, clean, quiet, masculine. The floors were scrubbed raw, the windows open. "You got a name?" he asked. "Junior." He nodded. "You'll sleep in the guest room." "And what do you expect in return?" "Meals. Some cleaning. Help in town if I ask. Don't lie to me. Don't leave the gate open. Don't cry over spilled feed." "That it?" "I don't need company." "Good," she said, "because I don't offer it." That first week, no one came up the long road. No neighbors, no visitors. But when she went into town, dust on her skirt and her braid tucked under a faded hat, eyes followed her like flies on syrup. At the grocer's, a woman leaned in close and hissed, "There's decent rooms for decent girls." At the feed store, Deputy Connors looked her up and down like he was sizing trouble. "You staying long with Rig?" he asked, leaning on the counter. Junior shrugged. "That's between me and the man with the porch sign." He tipped his hat but didn't smile. "Just mind appearances, miss. This town don't take kindly to arrangements." She walked out with 2 sacks of oats and a new sharpness in her spine. Sawyer didn't ask questions. He came in late, smelling of cattle and sweat. Ate silently, wiped his hands on a cloth, didn't compliment the stew, but didn't leave a drop in the bowl. "You bleedin'," she said one night, nodding at the tear in his sleeve. He looked down, then shrugged. "Happens." She pulled a clean cloth from the drawer and tossed it to him. "Not in my kitchen." He caught it midday. One eyebrow flicked up, just slightly. "Your kitchen. You got soup and biscuits, didn't you?" He didn't argue. Just cleaned the cut and ate the second helping. By the second week, she knew the rhythm of his boots on the stairs. She started leaving coffee out before sunrise. He didn't thank her. She didn't expect it. He fixed the front door hinge without her asking. She dusted the shelf where his late mother's portrait sat, but didn't move the frame. They passed each other like wind over wheat. Quiet, strong, waiting for something to grow, though neither planted seeds. On the 14th day, she found a dress in the laundry basket. Not hers. Silk, rose-colored, too fine for this dust. Junior held it up and stared. Sawyer walked in, paused. "That ain't yours." "No kidding. Laurel must have left it. Years ago." "She coming back?" He didn't answer. Just said, she was never supposed to stay. Junior folded the dress with stiff fingers. Then she and I had that in common. But she stayed. Because the roof didn't leak. Because the porch faced east, and the sun came gentle in the mornings. Because no one asked where she was from. Only what she'd do next. And because he never once looked at her like she was a burden. Or a question. Sawyer Rigg didn't offer kindness. He offered structure. Space. Dry socks and hot meals. She didn't know if that was love. But it was more than she'd had in years. On the 21st day, she found a torn glove near the barn. Men's leather. Old. She picked it up and turned to the wind. She still hadn't opened the letter in her bag. Still didn't know what it said. But for the first time since the orchard burned, she thought, maybe I'll read it tomorrow. She went inside and poured 2 coffees. One black, one with sugar. When Sawyer walked in, she handed him the sugared one. He took it without asking. By the end of the first month, Junior knew which floorboard creaked in the hallway and which corner of the porch caught wind hardest at night. She knew Sawyer kept 2 spoons and 1 knife in the drawer, never more, never less, and that he watered the rosebush beside the porch even though he pretended not to notice it bloomed. She also knew that Pine Barrel Ridge was watching her, not just the sideways glances in town, not just the way the shop girls went quiet when she entered. It was in the silences, in the drawn-out greetings, the way men tipped their hats but didn't hold doors, like she was something between scandal and question mark. Sawyer didn't seem to care, but then again, Sawyer never did. "What do they think I am?" she asked one evening as they sat across the kitchen table, her picking the skin off boiled potatoes, him reading a ledger. He didn't look up. "Don't know. Don't ask." She smirked. "Thought you didn't lie." "I don't." He met her eyes. "But I don't answer stupid questions either." That night, she added salt to his beans just to annoy him. He ate them without a word. It was Laurel who changed things. She rode into town on a pure black mare, satin dress catching sun like river glass. Junior spotted her before Sawyer did, standing by the post office with a parasol and a smirk. The town buzzed like flies around sugar. Laurel Hensley, the polished widow from Elk Hollow, back in Pine Barrel with money, perfume, and memories no one dared mention too loudly. Junior didn't flinch when she approached. "You're living out there with him?" Laurel asked, her smile soft and serrated. "I am." "No ring." "No need." Laurel tilted her head. "You sure about that?" Junior held her gaze. "You left him, didn't you?" Laurel didn't blink. "He don't keep anything he doesn't think belongs to him. Be careful you don't start thinking you belong." It wasn't the words that shook Junior. It was the way Laurel said them. Not as a warning, but as a woman who knew what it felt like to be wanted, and then discarded. Back at the ranch, Junior found the rosebush trimmed. Fresh water in the trough. A saddle she didn't recognize resting on the porch rail. "She was here," Junior said. Sawyer didn't answer, just unlaced his boots. "She wore silk," Junior added. Spoke like a woman who thought this place was still hers. He looked at her then. Not startled. Just tired. "She's not staying," he said. Junior folded her arms. "Neither am I. Not forever." "I know. You don't ask much, Sawyer Rigg. But you expect a lot." He nodded slowly. "I expect truth." She looked down. "Truth is, I don't know what I'm doing here." He turned back toward the door. "Then we're even." Deputy Connors came by the next morning. On horseback, boots caked in red dirt, hat low over his eyes. "Miss Whitlock," he greeted, nodding stiffly. "You and Mr. Rigg ever plan on setting things proper?" Junior leaned on the fence, straw between her lips. "Didn't realize your job covered marital arrangements." "Town's starting to talk," he said. "Preachers asked questions. Widow Jespers offered you a room." She laughed, not kindly. "And what? Bake pies and fold linens for a woman who calls me a harlot behind my back." Connors cleared his throat. Just saying, you make things easier for everyone if you didn't ruffle feathers. Junior stepped forward. Sawyer feed this town, fix half its fences, pay taxes on time. Yes, Then maybe the town ought to start thinking who really keeps this place upright. He frowned. That an answer? No, she said. That's a warning. That night, Sawyer was quiet at dinner, even more than usual. Junior didn't ask what he was thinking. She was too busy watching the storm outside build behind the mountains. Big one coming, he said finally. She nodded. Want me to move the feed bins in? He hesitated. You don't have to. She stood. Doesn't mean I won't. When the rain came, it came like fury. Wind snapped the barn doors open and flung grit through the window panes. Sawyer hadn't come back from the ridge. Junior stood on the porch, soaked to the knees, gripping the post as thunder cracked over the valley. Then she saw the horse, wild, panicked, riderless. She didn't think. Just grabbed the lantern and ran. She found him half a mile down the slope, crumpled in the mud beside a downed log. His leg was twisted wrong, his left arm limp. Damn fool, she muttered, dropping to her knees. He groaned faintly. Didn't mean for you to come. She wiped mud from his brow. Well, I didn't mean to care. We both full of surprises. She hauled him up with more anger than strength. Somehow, they made it back. 2 broken ribs, fractured arm, bruised pride. She set the bone, made broth, burned his old shirt by accident and didn't apologize. He slept. She sat by the fire, watching the embers break and curl. And in the bottom drawer of his desk, while searching for bandages, she found the letter. Old, yellowed, never opened. Laurel's handwriting. She held it for a long time, then tossed it into the flames. She didn't tell him. She didn't ask. She just brought him soup, propped his pillows, and told the town preacher, when he came knocking, that her husband was recovering and not taking visitors. The preacher's eyes widened. Husband. She shut the door without explaining. Sawyer didn't speak for 4 days. Not out of pain. He bore that the way he bore everything. Quietly, like it was his duty to suffer without sound. But even silence has different kinds, and this one wasn't empty. It was crowded, like a room full of thoughts that hadn't found their words yet. Junior didn't press. She fed the animals, mended a fence, even dealt with a cattle inspector who showed up unannounced with paperwork, and the attitude of a man who liked being listened to. You Riggs girl? The inspector asked, eyes scanning her like a ledger. No, she said, signing the form. I'm the one running the ranch while he heals, which means I'm also the one who knows where that shotgun's kept. Want me to draw you a map? He cleared his throat and backed off. Junior smiled as the ink dried. Somewhere between peeling potatoes and chasing a loose calf, she realized something had shifted, not in the house, but in herself. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was managing. On the 5th morning, Sawyer tried to get up and nearly collapsed. Junior caught him under the ribs. Try that again, and I'll tie you to the bed. His mouth twitched. You threatening me? I'm promising you. You break anything else, I'm not hauling you back in. I'll just bury you where you land. She helped him to the porch instead. Sat him in the chair that creaked less. They sat in silence for a while, watching the sky go from gray to pale gold. Then he said, I was wrong about something. She didn't look over. Just one thing. He chuckled once, more a puff of air than a laugh. I thought you'd leave by now. I almost did. What stopped you? She took a sip of her coffee. You weren't in any condition to carry me back if I collapsed. Figured I'd wait till you healed. He nodded. Fair. Junior paused. I burned her letter. That got his attention. His head turned slowly toward her. Laurel's, she clarified. Found it in your drawer. Figured if you hadn't opened it by now, you didn't need to. He didn't respond. just looked at her with something unreadable in his eyes. Not anger. Not gratitude. Something in between. I'm not jealous, she added. But I'm not a placeholder either. You never were. She exhaled, long and low. Good. They settled into a rhythm again. Different this time. Quieter. Less tense. Still no touching. Still no soft words. But something about the space between them felt real. He began reading aloud in the evenings. Not stories, but old ranch invoices, land orders, town notices. She teased him for it, but didn't tell him to stop. You think this is romantic? She asked once, raising an eyebrow. No, he said. I think it's practical. She smirked. Well, that's the most honest proposal I ever heard. He didn't answer, but the next day, she found an extra coffee mug in the cabinet. Identical to hers. It wasn't a gesture. It was a statement. Laurel came back the next week. Uninvited, unannounced. Standing on the porch in another silk dress that didn't belong on ranchland. Sawyer was inside shaving. Junior opened the door. Laurel looked her over. Heard he took a bad fall. Didn't stop him from running this place better than any man I've met. Laurel's smile was tight. He likes things neat. Predictable. Women who don't surprise him. Junior leaned against the doorframe. Then I must be giving him a heart attack every day. Laurel tilted her head. He doesn't love you, you know. Did he love you? The silence that followed was louder than thunder. Junior stepped closer. I'm not here because he needs me. I'm here because he doesn't lie. That's more than I can say for most folks. Laurel's voice dropped. Don't mistake his stillness for safety. He lets you in, then shuts the door behind you. Junior looked her dead in the eye. Then it's a good thing I brought my own key. Laurel turned and left without another word. That night, Junior stood on the porch while Sawyer cleaned his glasses inside. She wasn't sure what she expected. Applause? Gratitude? Instead, he stepped beside her and said, You told her the truth. I told her enough. He nodded. I heard. Wasn't trying to win points. I know. She hesitated. But I'd still like to know, do you want me to stay? His voice was low. I want you to choose it. She looked out at the fields. The land was dry, the work relentless, the house still full of Laurel's ghosts and her own doubts. But it was the first place in years where no one had asked her to be smaller, where silence didn't mean absence, where someone noticed when she leaned too hard on her left ankle. I'm not the kind of woman men choose, she said. You weren't chosen, he replied. You arrived. And you worked. And you stayed. That counts more. The breeze lifted her hair. She didn't brush it away. I'm not in love with you, she said. He nodded. I'm not asking for that. She turned to face him. Then what are you asking? He met her eyes, steady and slow. I'm asking if this can be home. She didn't answer that night. Instead, she went inside, took the second spoon from her bag, the one she hadn't used since her father died, and laid it gently in the drawer beside his. Then she turned down the guest bed and moved her things to the master room. The next morning, Junior woke to the sound of Sawyer shaving in the bathroom. Steam curled under the door. The mirror was fogged, but his movements were steady, left cheek, right, chin. Deliberate, like everything he did. She didn't speak as she passed him, only reached for her toothbrush and moved beside him like she belonged there. He didn't comment on her being in his bed, or in his mirror, and she didn't ask if anything had changed. Because it had, but not in the way townsfolk meant when they said change. There'd been no kisses, no vows, just her boots under the same bench as his. Her coat hung on the hook beside his hat. That was enough. For now. Later, in town, they walked side by side down Main Street, a first. No distance. No hiding. It wasn't intentional. It just happened. He'd needed more nails. She needed coffee beans. 1 buggy ride. 2 errands. Simple. Until it wasn't. You Whitlock. The voice came from behind the saddlery. Deputy Connor stepped into view, his badge catching light, his brow heavy. She said, turning. You and Rig been stirring talk. Word is you've been living up there like man and wife. But no paper says so. Sawyer's voice was calm. Not your business. Town says different. Connors looked at Junior. You want trouble? Keep pretending you're married without making it legal. You want peace. Do things right. She stepped forward. You want a wedding so badly, Deputy. Why don't you plan it? A few folks on the street paused to stare. Connor's jaw worked, but he didn't reply. Junior walked on. She didn't look back to see if Sawyer followed. He did. That evening, he came into the kitchen while she chopped carrots. Town's not wrong, he said. Didn't ask their opinion. No, but they are pushing. She dropped the knife. Are you? Sawyer shook his head. I'm asking. She folded her arms. Asking what? If you'd sign the book with me. She blinked. No preacher. No rings. No audience. Just names. He held out a folded paper. Neat handwriting. The county form. Already filled in. Just missing her signature. She stared at it. Then looked up. Why? He answered honestly. So they'll stop looking at you like a stray. She didn't cry. Not then. But later, alone in the room they now shared, she held the paper in her lap and let one tear drop onto the blank line beside her name. They registered the marriage the next morning. No one saw them walk into the clerk's office. The woman behind the counter raised an eyebrow when Sawyer said his name, but didn't ask questions. 2 signatures. 1 stamp. That was all it took. Junior Whitlock became Junior Rig on paper, but not in the way girls dreamed of. No bouquet. No lace. Just legal recognition of what they already knew. They were building something together, whether they called it love or not. When they stepped back out into the sun, he offered her a ride home. She declined. I'll walk. Want to feel what it's like to choose my way home. He nodded. Dinner'll be warm. She smiled. Only if you don't touch the stew. Back at the ranch, things didn't feel different. Which was good. Because Junior didn't want different. She wanted honest. She still fed the chickens. He still scowled at the ledges. But sometimes, just sometimes, his hand would brush hers when she passed him a cup, or he'd rest his palm on her lower back as she reached for the top shelf. Small things. Weightless things. But not meaningless. One evening, a week after the paper was signed, Laurel came back one last time. Junior heard the hooves before the knock. She opened the door before Laurel could raise her hand. You know, Laurel said, not even offering a smile this time. I thought you'd be gone by now. Or tired. Or settled into misery. Junior leaned on the doorframe. Instead, I'm married. Tired. And not the least bit miserable. You think you won? I didn't come here to win, Laurel. I came to survive. Laurel's eyes narrowed. And do you think that man loves you? Junior didn't flinch. Doesn't matter. Why not? Because I love who I am here. Laurel paused. Something shifted behind her eyes, the sharpness gone. Just for a second. I loved him once, she admitted. I believe you. But I never stayed. Junior nodded. And that's the only difference that matters. Laurel turned. This time, she didn't look back. After she was gone, Sawyer came onto the porch. Trouble? No, Junior said. Just a ghost taking one last look. He stood beside her. You sure you're all right? She looked at the ranch. The fields. The barn. The worn path from the house to the trough. Her coat beside his. Her spoon in the drawer. Her name on a piece of paper that didn't change the way the house felt. I've never been more sure. He looked at her sideways. You're not what I expected. She laughed. Neither are you. They stood there a while. No wind. No words. Then he said, "You don't have to stay." She nodded. "But I want to." That night, Sawyer fixed the squeaky step on the porch without being asked. Junior mended the seam on his flannel shirt and folded it neatly on the bed. Neither said thank you. They didn't need to. The rains ended early that year. By mid-April, the soil was already firm underfoot, and the scent of dust began to return to the wind, warm and familiar, like the earth had decided to wake up, not with flowers, but with memory. Sawyer was up before dawn again, limping slightly as he crossed the kitchen for his coffee. He poured 2 mugs, sugar in one, left the other black. When Junior came in, she didn't say thank you. She took the sugared one and sat without a word. Some things didn't need saying anymore. She'd learned how he liked his shirts folded, tight, sleeves tucked. He'd learned not to move her boots from beside the door. Their arrangement wasn't passionate, but it was intentional. It was built, not fallen into. One fence post, one supper, one compromise at a time. The town had quieted. Deputy Connor stopped coming by. Preacher offered no more sermons about appearances. The feed store boys, once full of looks and whispered jokes, now tipped their hats and said, "Morning, Mrs. Rigg," like she'd always been there. Maybe, in their way, they'd accepted that the ranch ran better with her on it. Or maybe it was because Laurel hadn't shown her face since she left. Either way, Junior didn't care. She'd learned early not to measure her place in the world by someone else's approval. Mid-spring brought a new challenge. A young ranch hand showed up at their gate, red-eyed, boots too big, hungry. 17, maybe. No last name. Said he'd worked up north, got run off when the owner died. Sawyer stood on the porch, silent. Junior asked the only question that mattered. "You willing to work for your meals?" The boy nodded hard. Sawyer handed him a shovel. That night, the kids slept in the barn loft. Junior made extra cornbread without needing to be asked. "He remind you of anyone?" She asked later, as she swept the kitchen. "Me," Sawyer said. Junior paused. "Not me." Sawyer looked up from the ledger. "You were never that lost." She swallowed. That compliment, coming from him, landed deeper than 1,000 flowers. One morning, a month later, Sawyer brought in a parcel from town. Wrapped in brown paper, tied with twine. He slid it across the table to her. She raised an eyebrow. "What's this?" He didn't answer. Just watched. She opened it slowly. A dress. Not silk. Not fine. But strong fabric. Soft blue, with sleeves that rolled up. A skirt made for walking, not posing. It was the kind of thing a woman could wear while hauling buckets and still look like herself. Junior blinked. "Why?" "You always wear the red one on Sundays," he said. "Figured you needed another." She folded the dress back carefully. "It's not a wedding gift, is it? We already had that." "A peace offering." He tilted his head. "No war." She smiled. "Then what is it?" "A thank you." She didn't reply. Instead, she rose and walked around the table. Stood in front of him. Reached for his face, not to kiss it, but just to touch it. To feel something real beneath her hand. He closed his eyes. They stood that way for a long time. They never used the words "I love you." That wasn't their style. But sometimes love isn't spoken, it's demonstrated. Like when he built a second saddle rack, just because she said her boots felt crowded in the mudroom. Or when she fixed the latch on the chicken coop so the wind wouldn't slam it at night. Or when they planted a tree beside the porch, a single apple tree, from a seedling she'd carried for years. She never said where she got it. He never asked. By late summer, the boy, they called him Clem, had grown into his boots. Taller, stronger. He followed Sawyer around like a shadow, asked Junior how to season beans, how to tie a fence knot, how to read cattle brands. One night, Sawyer found her sitting on the porch, moonlight on her cheek, book in her lap. He sat beside her. "You're good with him," she said. "You are too." He asked if we're his parents. Sawyer grunted. "What did you say?" "I said no." He nodded. Then she added, "But I said we were something better. Chosen people. People who stayed." That seemed to sit well with him. In the fall, a windstorm knocked the rosebush loose. Junior stood beside it, dirt on her hands, roots torn, petals scattered like scraps of memory. Sawyer came up behind her. "We could dig a new one," he said. She looked at the empty patch of earth. "No. Let it go." She turned to him. "We've got new things growing now." The last scene was this. Sawyer and Junior standing side by side at the fence line. The boy, Clem, was leading the calf to water. The ranch stretched quiet and golden around them. Sawyer rested a hand on her shoulder. She leaned into it, and without turning, he said softly, "Stay, if you want." She smiled. "I already did." Years later, folks still talked about the Rig place. Not because it was the biggest ranch or the richest, but because something there had been built right. Quietly, brick by brick, season by season. The tree by the porch bore fruit by its third spring. Not many apples, but enough to prove it took root. Clem stayed, built his own bunkhouse, taught a new hand how to mend a gate the way Sawyer taught him. Junior's red dress faded to rust. The blue one outlasted 5 winters. No one ever asked if they were happy. That wasn't the point. But if you saw them walking the fence line, boots side by side, not holding hands, just close enough to touch, you'd understand. They weren't trying to live a story. They just didn't quit writing one. If this story sat quiet with you, the way a good story should, consider subscribing. For more tales about grit, grace, and the quiet power of staying. No noise. Just stories. Subscribe for more.